Hello, all. This is Dr. Dave Maslach talking to you about reciprocity.com. The E is written with a 3. And in this particular video, I want to talk to you about how do you actually write an academic CV. And this is particularly relevant for, assistant professors and PhD students, graduate students that are thinking about writing their academic CV. So if you don't know me, I am an associate professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship, and I created this whole reciprocity project to give back as much as I possibly can. There were so many people that helped me out that I wanted to pay the favor forward and help you out. All right, so how do you actually write an academic CV as an assistant professor or as a PhD student, graduate student that is sort of thinking about doing this for the first time? It's a real daunting task. The first thing that I would get you to do is go to see what other people have done. So go find your favorite professor around the world, wherever it is. Maybe it's at University of Toronto, maybe it's at University of Arizona, wherever, and just look to see what their CV looks like. So first of all, if you don't know what a CV is, that's kind of like your academic resume. I know I was kind of looking up online to sort of see what the difference is. So the resume is kind of like a little snippet, a smaller sort of component, and then a CV is a longer thing. But generally, we just talk about CVs in academia, and that is your curriculum vitae. I think I'm saying that right. I believe so, and you know what? You can't blame me if I get it wrong. All right, so it is. It's called your CV. It's just your resume, and basically what it is, it kind of gives you a detailed sort of history of what you've done over the last little while. So I want you to go look at a couple of those and see how to do it. So first of all, you can. Second of all, you can do this in different formats and all that kind of stuff. So see what somebody else has done and see the kind of format that they're doing. But I want to get into sort of things that actually matter in terms of getting a job and sort of signaling and things like that. And that's the more important thing for you to think about. How do you actually get a job with the academic CV? So, all the kind of nitty gritty sort of stuff that everybody's going to tell you online, just make sure it's perfect and, pretty and not purdy. And all that kind of stuff. But what I want you to think about rather is your academic CV is not necessarily just kind of like, all the different stuff that you've done, but it is a signaling tool to communicate stuff or things to other people, whatever that stuff or things is. And you have to think about that when you're applying to different jobs or when you are sort of strutting your stuff, right? That's really what it is. Think of it as a signaling tool. And whatever information you have is the thing that you're actually trying to communicate to somebody else. So a couple of things. You want to emphasize on there the things that you probably think are important to you and what you're actually about, right? So you can change the order of things on there if you didn't know that. So if you have a large number of publications, put the down number of publications or put the publications right up front, and so everybody can see it. Maybe it is the quality of publications. You want to sort of maybe rank order the different publications that you have, for example. So you might have proceedings of Academy, the proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, which would be cool, or science or nature or whatever. Put that right up front so everybody sees that thing, right? So you want to emphasize what you have done. If you like the conferences, for example, or if you've gone to a bunch of conferences and you're in the proceedings and they're really sort of famous conferences, well, put those up front. So papers are going to matter more. Obviously, that publications are going to matter more. Everybody's probably stressed that more. If it's grants in your area, that matters a lot, and they're prestigious grants, we'll put those right up front, right? So that's what you're trying to do, is communicate something to somebody else and try to emphasize those particular things. You could change the order of what you're trying to communicate. And when you're a youngin', right, like myself, I'm still really young. When you're a youngin' and you're trying to think about what you're communicating to other people, that matters, right? So the full professors, they are communicating their own thing, But at the same time, they probably don't have to communicate the same sort of stuff that you're trying to do, and so it's a little bit more of a trickier game when you start out because there's lots of uncertainty, and you have to think about this is kind of a matching game, right? That everybody is sort of seeing or viewing what you're trying to do, and they're really uncertain about who you are as an individual. They don't really know who you are, so they're very, very uncertain about what you're trying to do and what you're about. And so you have to communicate what you are to that other person, right? So there's all this murkiness, and you have to sort of display what you're good at, right? So think about the other thing I want you to do, in sort of related to that, is the second component, is think about how you want other people to view you, right? So that's an important thing, is to emphasize what you think other people are expecting of you. So if you're sending to your CV to teaching schools, and don't emphasize your research right up front. Like, that's not going to go that well. You probably want to emphasize some components of your teaching, in the sense that maybe you've taught like a broad number of courses, maybe you've taught like specific ones that are really important. The other thing you want to do is emphasize, so if it's a research school, then emphasize your research and all the things that you've done in terms of research, so publications, or working in these different research labs, or something along those lines, right? Communicating. You also want to think about sometimes you want to communicate status, or that you have a certain reputation. And so by linking to certain individuals, or being part of a team of certain individuals, maybe you were able to work at the NBER, right? So you want to communicate that you're part of the National Bureau of Economic Research, which is really prestigious sort of center in Boston, I believe. I might be wrong, but I think it's Boston. Anyway, somebody's going to correct me. But anyway, so you want to communicate that, right? That you're part of this, or you presented at that, and that's going to help you out in terms of the prestige that you have. And sometimes you want to think about prestige as an important thing to communicate in the academic market, right? So if you didn't know this, the academic market, again, I've mentioned this before, and there's like pecking orders that are involved. And so you want to communicate sort of different various aspects of that. That's a really important thing that it's going to help you out, right? So if you have given research talks at, Princeton, Harvard, NYU, I don't know, whatever it is, Stanford, then you might want to emphasize that as well at the beginning, and sort of communicate that to other people. It's really important to do that. That's going to help you out tremendously. So the other thing that you want to be careful of with your CV, so you do see a lot of PhD students, or whoever it is, emphasizing that they're working on a zillion different projects, and they're all, that they've done all these different projects. You have to be really careful with that, because there's going to be some people that are going to ask for your working paper, and they're going to want to look into that. So just make sure that you have an actual physical working paper that is completed, or just be honest on your CV or your resume and just say, well, I've only done data collection, or we have 5 pages complete, right? So you just write like 5 pages complete or something like that, so that when somebody sees it, they know that it's really just a work in progress, and it's not really that big of a deal at this moment, right? And because there's lots to be done. The other thing with works in progress, it is, so depending on where you're going and what you're trying to think about, is you want to maybe emphasize different works of progress differently, and sort of signal different things when you're doing that, right? This is an important thing. So maybe, so instead of listing, 100 different working projects, which we all have, and working papers in various different stages, maybe you want to emphasize just the ones that are really important, that you think that the other people might sort of pick up on, and that resonate with what they're doing, right? So you might want to look at the research interests that they have, and sort of think about, what is it that resonates with what they're doing? That's an important thing to communicate to them. And it's all about communication at the end of the day, making sure that you're communicating the right things to the right people, and making sure that it's clear that they understand what you're about, right? And if you get that message wrong, then that sort of signal component of it kind of gets weak, and then other people don't pay attention to it. The other thing that you should be doing is you might want to communicate what sort of stuff that needs to be done that you're working on, so your working papers. Not only that the stuff that you've worked on, but in sort of work in progress, but what else needs to be done? Maybe some data collection, data analysis, and then also sort of signal what is your role in those different sort of working papers or papers that you've done, right? So sometimes you might want to write, lead author, or you just communicating different things. And so that's why you see a lot of CVs vary in a lot of different ways, is that they're trying to communicate different things to different people. And some people, in terms of like this prestige, for example, some people will communicate that they have different prizes or awards for the different papers that they're working on. That's really important to signal that. So especially for people that are in like strategy, for example, that just take a long time. Some fields just take a long time to get published. And that's okay. And you want to communicate that maybe you've won a couple of awards for different conferences for a certain paper, right? So you might, and it depends on where you want to put it. You put the awards up front. You could put the awards right after each paper. I've seen either or, and they're both okay in terms of what you're trying to communicate. And you're trying to just jam pack as much information as you possibly can in as short amount of time as page link it as you can, and varying and depending on who you are and what sort of style you have, you can either have a real short one that's like a page or two, or you can have a longer one, and it just kind of varies. And you sort of think about what you're communicating to other people, and that's an important thing to sort of show, right? And so, a full professor, their CV is going to be like 30 pages long. It's going to be super long. So some of them actually have really short ones where they just show the things that are important to them. And it might be just like a one-liner, right? So, they got a paper in American Journal of Economics, for example, right? So then they write that down, and that they have that's on there, and it's a one-liner. And then they maybe emphasize different, people that they're working with, for example. So as you go further in your career, so instead of emphasizing the sort of prestige of who you're working with and sort of working your way up, what you'll see is full professors sort of shifting and working with different students and showing that they're really good collaborators with students and growing them and developing them. And it really just depends on who they are and what they're trying to do. And so that's what I'm trying to point out with you with thinking about your own academic CVs as assistant professors or PhD students around the world. Is just think about what you're trying to communicate and the messages that you're trying to show to other people, and try to, and it's really just communication in terms of what you're trying to show and what you're trying to do. And you know what you're about, but you have to show that to somebody else and communicate that thing, whatever it is. Maybe you're all about rigor, for example. Well, then you want to communicate sort of rigor, or maybe you're about, you have a very broad interest, and so you want to communicate that. So, or you're very specialized in a certain field that, a couple of people are in, and so you want to communicate that. And it's just ways of sort of moving the CVs around such that it sort of matches that. So what I would do, go see what other people do, go to your favorite professors, read a couple of their CVs, kind of copy, quote unquote, imitate what they have done in terms of the formats and things like that. I don't think anybody's going to really care about the formatting that you have. Keep it real basic, simple, and then try to replicate what they've done, but put it in your own work, your own terms, and sort of focus on that. That's going to help you out going forward. And then think about what you're trying to communicate and what you want the other people to sort of read into you. It's really important. You don't have to put everything that you've done, and you could just focus on the things that you're trying to communicate to other people. All right, so hopefully this helps you out in terms of thinking about your academic CV. I know it's different than what everybody else writes online. It talks about online. This is really the stuff that matters and is going to help you out to get a job. All right, take care. Have a wonderful day. Do subscribe to the YouTube channel. Oh, give me a thumbs up. And yeah, bye.